and he has a hard out at 2:30, so we're going to try and get him out of here. Okay, all yours.
And I have 20 minutes of remarks, so I hope you guys will bear with me.
The new NBC News poll, the wrong track, sitting at 75%. This is obviously in shellacking territory.
Americans are now spending $5,000 a year on gasoline. That's almost double what they did a year ago. Where are people supposed to go to get all that extra cash?
To get the extra cash to pay for gas?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we've been very clear about is to do everything in our power to make sure that we lower costs. Of the current price hike that we have seen has come from Putin's aggression against Ukraine.
So the president announces on March 31st that he's got all these steps to lower gas prices, and it's still Putin's fault 7 weeks later.
Well, because what I'm saying is, but before then, it had the price per gallon had fallen down about 10 cents or more, and then Putin started his aggression.
Pausing because you think the board was mischaracterized, then the Disinformation Board is being shut down because of disinformation. Is that what's happening here?
Look, I mean, the board was put forth for a purpose, right? To make sure that we really did address what was happening across the country when it came to disinformation.
And it's okay to wait now, 75 days.
It's just going to pause. There's been a mischaracterizations from outside forces, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to pause it, and we're going to do an assessment. But the work doesn't stop. We're still going to continue the work.
She's in good company in this White House, and that Vice President had it, the second gentleman had it, you had it, Jankowicz had it twice, a number of top cabinet officials had it, a number of other aides in the West Wing, and no one so far that I can remember has been deemed a close contact of the president. Why are none of these people close contacts of the president and his sister, actually, including family members?
Look, you know, the close contact is as it's deemed by CDC, and he hasn't seen Ashley in several days, and it's also there's a time component to how long that person was in the room.
There's a bulletin now that DHS is worried if Roe v. Wade is overturned, there could be violence against the Supreme Court building or Supreme Court justices. Are these threats from pro-abortion activists or anti-abortion activists?
So look, the president is clear on this question. He believes the right to peacefully protest in this country is fundamental, and so we want to make sure we're calling out on both sides of what is happening and what we're seeing. While protests have been peaceful to date, the Department of Justice has U.S. Marshals providing support to support court-martial, and the president believes Congress should pass the legislation to fund.
You know, do you still, I guess, stand behind Chairman Powell's vision on rate hikes? And broadly, you guys have said that you're not following day-to-day market tribulations, but we're now getting to a point where some of the gains that defined the president's tenure are being erased. And so is there a new level of alarm within the White House about this?
Well, as you know, we say this all the time, Josh, you know, it's Justin. The Fed chair, you know, the Federal Reserve is independent. We leave them to make their own policy decisions. We do not get involved in that, and nothing has changed on how we see the stock market. We do not. That's not something that we keep an eye on every day. So I'm not going to comment about that from here.
Last week, you guys said that you needed this Disinformation Governance Board at DHS to make sure that freedom of speech is protected across the country, and that these platforms are not used for forms of disinformation. So what changed?
Look, the Department of Homeland Security, they began their statement repeating that the board had been intentionally mischaracterized, which is a little bit of what you were asking me. As Secretary Marcos said, he has asked former DHS Secretary Michael Chernoff and former DAG Jamie Gorelick to lead a thorough review. This is the pause that I was talking about.
Inflation concerns are now rubbing off on quarterly earnings reports for a lot of big companies. Target, for example, today says it missed its estimates because of increased costs of transportation and gas. That's part of what's driving this at least 1,100-point drop in the Dow so far. What would you say, what does the White House say to investors and everyday Americans who are concerned that there's no end in sight to these price hikes?
Look, you know, I'm not going to speak to the stock market, but, you know, this is something that is very important to the president when it comes to inflation and making sure that we lower costs for the American people. Again, you know, this is to address Putin's price hike at the pump. The president, as I was saying, allies and partners around the world, they came together. I was talking about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
The president said of Fetterman's win, and of the Republicans who are still locked in a pretty tight battle in Pennsylvania. Whoever emerges will be too dangerous, too craven, and too extreme to represent Pennsylvania and the United States. Do the Democrats run the risk of underestimating the Republican Senate nominee in Pennsylvania
Look,
and gubernatorial nominee?
you know, the president remains really focused on delivering for the American people. And what you see from congressional Republicans and what you see from the GOP is the plan for American people is to raise taxes in the middle class.
DHS said today that they'll be pausing the Disinformation Governance Board, whether or not it should be paused. And then also some experts have said that it was sort of set up to fail the way it was rolled out. Do you have a response to that?
So the board has never convened. It never convened, and the board is yes, the board is pausing in the sense that it will not convene while former Secretary Chertoff and former Deputy AG Gorelick do their assessment. Again, neither Nina Jankowicz nor the board have anything to do with the censorship. She has strong credentials and a history of calling out misinformation.
Did the White House play a role at all in whether it should be paused or what should happen with the board?
No, first of all, like I said, this is what's happening. There is a pause. We did not have an involvement in this at all.